On Bitcoin H1 timeframe, we were waiting for a third swing to form around our red trend line to consider it valid and then sell on its break downward, which as you can see didn't happen, so no sell entry yet, and that's the power of our trading style. We don't sell immediately if price is sitting around a resistance or round number. We always look for extra confirmation and trigger. We want the sellers to prove to us that they are taking over, and as you clearly see, the sellers didn't kick in and the buyers took full control and broke aggressively above the previous all-time high, which is around 20k. So the 20k now is acting as support, and let's delete our previous analysis since price didn't respect it and make a quick update. If we zoom into weekly time frame again, we can see that, as mentioned before, price broke above our all-time high and 20k round number, so it's currently forming a new highs and it's currently trading around its new all-time high, and we don't have anything holding Bitcoin back except round numbers, because as we already know, we always look for opportunities around support and resistance. But since it's trading above its previous all-time high and creating new highs, we don't have any previous history to hold it back to be able to draw our support and resistance. That's why our only rejection zones would be key and major round numbers. For example, here we have 25k, so we can expect a rejection from here. Again, just like we did here, we don't sell immediately even if price is sitting around a strong round number, and as you clearly see, as it's only one confluence and it can be random and not enough to be able to push price lower, and that's exactly what happened. We didn't sell, price went straight up, kicking early sellers out. So for now, what we should expect? For now, this one is currently acting as the previous all-time high, which would what I call a key what I call key event area. So a trend continuation bullish movement would be expected from here, and since we don't have anything holding Bitcoin back, we can expect a rejection from here, since many traders would put their take profit around here or would put sell limit around this area. That's why we'll be looking for sell opportunities around this area and buy opportunities around this area. If we zoom in to H4 time frame, we can see that Bitcoin is overall bullish, and we are clearly bullish as price didn't break below its previous low yet. As you clearly see, price is making higher lows, and now we are expecting a new low to form around our trend line. This trend line is what I call the outer trend line. So for now, as mentioned, from weekly time frame, we know that Bitcoin is currently trading inside this floor. We do have a potential rejection here and around here, and the lower rejection is even stronger. Why? Because we also have this non-horizontal support, as you can see in brown. So here we have two confluences pushing price up. So for now, we will not sell, we will not buy, as price is sitting in the middle of this area. We want price to approach our 25k to get more liquidity, so that many traders will get involved, and then and only then we'll be looking for sell setups. Except, as mentioned before, we will not sell immediately, as price can still break upward and continue its bullish movement, especially that many fundamental analysis are into play for crypto, and many things are going around in this in these days. So we're waiting for price to approach our upper round 25 potential rejection zone to look for sell setups, and of course we'll be waiting for price to approach this one to look for trend following long-term buy setups. For now, that's it for Bitcoin. Hope you took benefit from it. Best of luck. Hello everyone, Rich here, and here's a quick but detailed update on Bitcoin. As we all know, from a technical perspective, Bitcoin is overall bullish, making big impulse movements and small corrective. As you can see, big impulse and small corrective, and we are now in a corrective phase. But we know that the buyers are in full control, that they are not letting the bears make this deep corrective move, right? So when we are in an uptrend, we would have a big impulse, small corrective, right? But the corrective is that small that it's almost flat, which means that the buyers are still very, very aggressive. And many of you thought that now the sellers are taking over, which is not true, unless this candle closed below the 30K. As you can see, this candle was in the middle of the day, very, very bearish, almost resulting in a big momentum bearish candle engulfing the previous bullish candle. In this case, we may know that we may have a shift in momentum and now we are in a short-term downtrend. But that didn't happen. As you can see, the bulls kicked in at the end of the day and pushing price higher, even above the 30K round number. So we are still overall bullish. Maybe the buyers are a little bit tired. Maybe many traders would have took their profit around here, or maybe many traders would have put their sell limits around here. But that doesn't mean that the sellers are still in full control unless they manage to break aggressively like this momentum candle, but not with a wick from the downside below this one, then and only then we may consider that we may have a bearish movement. For now, we are still very, very bullish around here. And since we don't have support and resistance, we are considering that these round numbers are our key rejection levels, right? Because Bitcoin keeps on making new all-time highs. So our 20, 25, 30, and even 35, as you can see around here, price rejected the 35. Here we go. And then once broken upward, our next one would be the 40, 45, and the 50K would be a very, very strong and interesting round number to look for corrective movements around it. But for now, we know that we are still overall bullish and we'll be looking for trend following buy setups on Bitcoin, unless, as mentioned, we would have a break of the structure. Now we know that the momentum is shifted and we'll be looking for a short-term bearish movement, then we'll be looking for buy setups. Let's zoom into our time frames. For example, if we zoom into H4, we can see that this one from a medium term perspective is overall bullish, and we do have this non-horizontal support. So if Bitcoin managed to break below the 30K level, we know that our nearest support or rejection, whatever you want to call it, as it's not a support and resistance, as it's only a round number. But as mentioned, since we don't have a typical support and resistance with many failed attempts to break above it or below it, then we consider that these ones are our key rejection levels. So if Bitcoin managed to break below it, then our first support area, or whatever you want to call it, as mentioned, or demand, as price made an aggressive movement upward from here, we'll be looking for trend following buy setups if and only if Bitcoin managed to make a fat, big corrective move, right? But for now, we are still overall bullish and we'll be looking for buy setups. If we zoom into H1 time frame, we can see that from a short-term perspective, we are also overall bullish. That big impulse you saw on daily, the last one, is this big move. So we can see that price is making big impulse movements upward and small corrective, big impulse, small corrective. So we are still overall bullish, and it wouldn't be a good idea to sell just yet. And the upper trend line, for those who know me, know that I consider it as an overbought area in this case, as it's above the price. So we are overall bullish by staying trading inside these two gray trend lines, and it's currently sitting around our lower one. And as mentioned before, the 30K level, as price was around here, was acting as a resistance, but now since it's broken upward, now it's acting as support. So a bullish movement would be expected from here, but nothing is confirmed yet. As always, we wait for extra confirmation and trigger. So from an H1 perspective, we'll be waiting for this swing to form. As you can see, we do have a swing low, swing low. This trend line is not valid yet. We're waiting for this swing low to form, or for those who are considering objective swing lows, will be waiting for a blue dot to form around here to consider that this trend line is now valid, and then and only then we will consider selling on its break downward, just like our typical trading style. And when the sell is activated, our stop loss would be just above the last swing high, and we'll target a 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio, which would be around the lower green support and brown trend line. In this case, as price approaches this area, we'll be looking, as mentioned, from H4 for trend following by setups. But for now, until this scenario got activated, we are still overall bullish, as mentioned before, and we'll be looking for trend following by setups. So if we zoom into M30 time frame, we can see that price already formed a trend line, so we'll be waiting for a new swing to form around it to consider it our trigger swing as per our trading style, and then and only then, here we go, let me select the rectangle. Here we go. And we will enter buy after a momentum candle close above it. So for now, as mentioned, we are still overall bullish. The bulls are still in control when the buy is activated, when the conditions are met, of course. Our stop loss would be just below the last swing low, and we'll target a 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio, which would be around the 35, 34,999. Okay, so for now, we'll be waiting for this trend following bullish movement, unless, as mentioned on H1, price will manage to break below this one, then a short-term bearish movement will be expected till around here. Then here we'll be looking for trend following buy setups. That's it for Bitcoin. Best of luck. Here's a quick but detailed update on Bitcoin. If you guys like video analysis, let me know in the comments or simply leave a like, and of course, follow me for more videos. As per our last analysis, price was sitting around here, and we were looking for trend following by setups. And since Bitcoin keeps on making new all-time highs, we don't have typical support and resistance. We all know that a typical support and resistance is when we have many failed attempts to break above or below a certain level. But as mentioned, since Bitcoin is making new all-time highs, we don't have typical support and resistance. That's why we are considering that our round numbers is our potential key rejection zones. That's why we see the 30, 35, 40, and so on, right? And that's why we're looking for trend following buy setups on the 30K level. If we zoom into H1 time frame, we can see that this one is overall bullish, making higher highs and higher lows. And after breaking the 30K and on the retest of the lower gray trend line, we were looking for trend following buy setups. If we zoom into M30 time frame, we can see that price formed an objective trend line, as you can see in red, and we were waiting for a momentum candle close above the last swing to buy this one for extra confirmation, with our stop loss just below the last swing low, and we targeted a 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio. This trade hit take profit, so let's delete this one as we don't need it anymore. And as usual, let's make a quick update. If we zoom out to daily time frame again, we can see, as mentioned previously, that Bitcoin is still very, very bullish and the bulls are in full control. Because as we know that in an uptrend, price will be making higher highs and higher lows, right? And usually the retest would be a little bit deep. But as you can see here, the retest or the corrective movement is very flat, right? Because the which means that the buyers are very in control, that they are not letting the sellers make a deep retest like a usual uptrend. That's why we know that we are still very, very bullish and we are only interested in buying Bitcoin. That's why we're looking for buy setups on this flat corrective. And as long as this one is very bullish, unless we have a price action telling us otherwise, we are only interested in buying Bitcoin on the previous round number. Unless, and I repeat, unless we would have a big momentum bearish candle closing below the previous two, at least engulfing the previous two bullish candle. candles. Then and only then we may consider that we have a shift in momentum, and we'll be looking for sell setups on the retest of the last round number, right? So for now we are still very bullish, and our nearest round number is around the 35k. Price was sitting around here. We looked for buy setups. Then price broke our 35k aggressively with two bullish candles. Then this one is now acting as support. It's not a typical support as mentioned, as we don't have many failed attempts, but this one acts as a potential support to look for buy setups. And for now, price is breaking the 40k, but this daily candle isn't closed yet. So price can still reject it, and resulting in a big wick from the upper side. But for now, the bulls are trying to break it. That's why before the bulls break it upward, we are still concluding that this one is our next key support to look for buys. Unless price would break it upward aggressively, then our next support or key rejection level to look for buys would be around the 40k. So long story short, from daily time frame, we'll be looking for buy setups around this area. Unless price will break it upward, then we'll be looking on the retest for buy setups. So when to look for and when to look for buy setups, we simply do just like we did before. On M30 time frame, we can see that why we took this buy in the first place, why we looked for buy, right? Because when we have an uptrend, price will be making higher lows, right? Higher lows, and we are not interested in buying and buying on the impulse phase, as price can still retest, right? We want to wait for the retest, and then we will enter buy to catch the next impulse phase. So when we know that we have a retest, when price will break below the previous swing low in this case, and that's why exactly we were looking for buy setups around this one. As mentioned last week, price was around here, so it already did this corrective movement, and that's why we were looking for buy setups, and we'll be waiting for the exact same scenario for now. For now, this one is still in the impulse phase, so you don't want to buy now, as price can still make a deep correction before going upward, just like it did here. So many traders bought around this area and suffered from this corrective movement. That's why we are still overall bullish, and we are not interested in buying this one yet until price breaks below the previous swing low, just like what happened here. Then and only then we'll be interested in buying Bitcoin. So what we're waiting for is a break below previous swing low, a couple of swings like this, and then we'll enter a trend following buy setups. But we'll look for trend following buy setups, unless, as mentioned before, we have an aggressive bearish candle closing below the previous two bullish candles. So long story short, again, we are looking for buy setups, but not now. We're waiting for a retest to look for buy setups. Unless price breaks it upward aggressively, then we'll be looking for buy setups around this area. And as we mentioned on M30, our key rejection area to look for is around the 35k area. So we'll be waiting for this scenario to happen, for example, and then we'll enter buy after a momentum candle close above this area. Here we go. And just like we did before, we targeted a 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio entry, stop loss, and our target is a 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio. Here we go, and of course we'll be waiting for an entry, stop loss, and 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio, which would be around the 40k level again. I'm not saying that this one should make a retest from here. Price can still go up as mentioned before going down, or even go up aggressively. Then we'll be looking for the exact same scenario on the 40k level. As I always say, don't try to predict. We always react, just like chess. Always wait for your opponent to make the first move and then act accordingly. Best of luck. Here's a quick but detailed update on Bitcoin. If you guys like video analysis, let me know in the comments or simply leave a like, and of course follow me for more videos. As per our last analysis, Bitcoin was around here and we were looking for a corrective movement till around the 35k level to look for trend following buy setups, right? Just like what happened here, corrective movement till the 30k and we looked for trend following buy setups here as well, and so on. But we didn't expect that the corrective movement would be that aggressive. And as mentioned last week, this one would be overall bullish as the corrective movement is very flat compared to the impulse movement, as when we are in an uptrend, price would have to make a corrective movement, and usually it's a deep corrective movement. However, on Bitcoin, the corrective is very flat, which means that the bulls are still in full control. However, as mentioned, we didn't expect that the corrective movement would be that deep. But but the question is, are we still bullish or we are bearish now? As mentioned last week, we will be the momentum will be shifted if we would have a momentum candle closing below the 35k and closing below the 35k, resulting in an engulfing candle engulfing the previous couple of bullish candles. So from my perspective, or from market structure perspective, we are still overall bullish, but the buyers seems to be losing momentum. But it wouldn't be a good idea to look for sell setups now, because if and only if this is a shift in momentum, you are now selling at the end of the impulse phase. So if we were to look for sell setups, we have to wait for a corrective movement, and then we'll be looking for a reversal for a trend following sell setup, right? But from my perspective, we are still bullish, especially that if we zoom out to weekly time frame, we can see that we have this massive wick from the downside. I know that this weekly candle isn't closed yet, but for now, this one is extremely bullish, right? If even though we know that it is red, but we know that from this very big wick, which is almost double the size of the bearish candle, or what we call the body, we know that we are still bullish, unless, and I repeat, unless this weekly candle would close around here. Then and only then we'll be looking for a retest, and then we'll be looking for sell setups. So from daily and weekly, we know that we are still overall bullish and we'll be looking for buy setups. But the question is, where we'll be looking for the buy setups. Since price made this aggressive wick, and as you can see, very big corrective movements, but then the buyers took control and closed above the 35k, which is also a round number. As mentioned last week, we are using our round numbers as to consider that these are our key rejection levels or zones, because we don't have typical support and resistance where price would tend to make many failed attempts to break above it or below it, right? So we are now looking for buy and sell setups around our round numbers. So price is now sitting around the 35k, but since we had this massive wick from the downside, now this entire zone is our support zone, right? So price can still trade a little bit lower before going up, but as long as Bitcoin is sitting around this area, we're only interested in buying this one. And as price approaches our upper 40k, now we can look for sell setups. So long story short, buy from around here and sell from around here, because we also have this massive movement downward, resulting in a very strong supply zone. We can see it even better on H4 time frame. We can draw it like this, and here we go. Usually our base would be the last bullish candle. So here's our supply zone, as price made an aggressive movement downward from it, as you can see. Sorry. So as price approaches this area, we'll be looking for sell setup, for sell setups. So even though for those who think that now we have a shift in momentum and we have to look for sell setups, I recommend that you look for sell setups around this area, as price can still go up before going down, especially that we can see from daily time frame that Bitcoin couldn't close below the 35K. And I'm not saying that it won't close below it, but since we have this massive wick, we know that we are still overall bullish. And here we go. If you zoom out, we can see that we have a demand zone around here, right? So this massive movement isn't that surprising, like many traders are saying that Bitcoin is going to crash and blah blah blah, because we have this demand zone. So as per market structure, when we have an aggressive movement upward, we know that price may retest to test this demand zone, as many traders would have put their buy limits around here. So we've got a very high liquid zone. So price can still go down before going up. So and that's exactly what's happening here, right? We had this aggressive movement upward, many buy limits around here. Price went down to kick some of them out, and then it's going up. So we are still overall bullish as mentioned, and we'll be looking for buy setups. And if we zoom into M30 time frame, yes, right, we were expecting this corrective movement, right? But as mentioned, it was too aggressive. And as mentioned last week, we know that we are in a corrective movement when the previous low is broken downward. And that's exactly what happened. So starting from here, and as mentioned last week, we were in an impulse phase, and it wouldn't be a good idea to look for longs, right? We know that we are in a corrective phase, and as mentioned, the corrective phase would be confirmed after a break below the previous low. So as just like we did here we go. Let me scroll back. Just like we did here, we knew that we are in a corrective phase when price breaks below the previous low. Corrective movement, then we looked for buy setups, and here we go. But as mentioned, this one, we didn't expect that the corrective movement would be this aggressive. We were waiting for a clean corrective movement, just like what we were expecting here. And you saw me posting this one like 2 or 3 days ago. So, but the corrective movement was so deep that which invalidates this view, right? Because we wanted this clean movement. So let's delete our previous analysis. We didn't buy this one yet. We are still looking for extra confirmation as our previous setup didn't get activated. Let me get this one, which is our supply zone from H4. Let me make it in green. So after this break downward, here we go. After this low break downward, we are in a corrective phase. So we are still in a corrective phase. And the question is for those who believe that Bitcoin is now bearish, we will be looking for sell setups around here, right? Because we have a supply zone. We'll be looking for a sell setup. And we are mainly, for now, since price is sitting around this huge support area, we will be looking for buy setups. And if we zoom out on H1 time frame, we can see that Bitcoin is now trading inside this megaphone pattern, and it makes good sense that the impulse is getting bigger as the megaphone is getting bigger. So here we go, we have an impulse and a small corrective, then we had a very big impulse and a very big corrective. So now if price would respect this megaphone pattern, would have an even bigger impulse and an even bigger corrective movement. So, and as mentioned, we are still overall bullish, and it would be a good area to look for buy setups around this one, around our lower gray trend line, around the 30K, because as mentioned, price made very big wick. This one is a very big wick on daily time frame. We'll be looking for buy setups around here and for sell setups around this area. So long story short, let me end this video with this view, as we don't have anything yet on M30 forming. Would be waiting for this, here we go, for a movement like this to look for buy setups from around this area. And of course, it doesn't have to look exactly like this, as price can still go down, make a double bottom around here, or whatever is included in your trading plan. Always follow your trading plan. Okay, so here we go. We may look for buy setups around this area, Let me make it in gray as usual for our trigger, or we'll be waiting for this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? To look for sell setups around the supply zone. And of course, as I always say, I can still I can still talk for like 20 minutes, but I would like to keep it short. Let me make it like this. So let's make this one in blue and this one in red, right? To make it clear for our eyes. And as I always say, this one would be looking for sell setups around this area, unless, and I repeat, unless price breaks it upward aggressively, then it would become support and we'll be looking for buy setups on its retest. But for now, I'm trying my best to keep it short and to keep it inside this entire zone. We will be looking for buy setups around this area, and of course, this one can still trade a little bit lower as it's sitting inside this very big support area, and we'll be looking for buy setups around it. Let's make this one in blue and this one in red, right? Because we have these ones in gray. Or yes, so basically that's it. From my perspective, I'm for now waiting. I'm waiting for Bitcoin to cool down and then to look for buy setups around this area or sell setups around this area. Of course, if price breaks it downward aggressively, we'll be looking for sell setups. Now it will be confirmed, as mentioned from daily and weekly, right, that we are in a bearish trend, and as price approaches this area, we'll be looking for sell unless price breaks it upward and so on. Best of luck. So from this chart, we know that Bitcoin is overall bearish now, trading inside this giant red channel, right? And as per my last picture analysis, price was around here, and we were waiting for price to approach our upper red trend line to look for trend following sell setups. So for now, let me delete these projections to make our chart clearer, right? Here we go. So we know that overall trend is bearish. Here's our first major resistance, major support, and the major next support would be around the 20K. So price is currently trading inside this floor or this upper resistance and this lower support. So we'll be looking for sell setups as price approaches our red trend line. And yes, for now we'll zoom into lower time frames as price already made it there to look for sell setups. And of course, as price approaches our lower support, we'll be looking for buy setups. And as mentioned, we'll be waiting for price to form a new or two new swings around our upper red trend line to consider it valid, and then we'll enter buy on to break upward for a full reversal to the upside, right? So here we go. We'll be waiting for this one or two swings to form around our upper red trend line and then buy on to break upward. In this case, we expect a full reversal and a movement till our upper resistance would be expected. But for now, let's monitor this one step by step. Since it's sitting around our upper trend line, we'll be looking for trend following sell setups. And as it approaches our lower support, we have two options. We'll be looking for buy setups unless, and I repeat, unless price breaks it downward aggressively, then our support would become resistance and we'll be looking for sell setups on its retest. But for now, as mentioned, let's monitor this one step by step. For now, price is sitting around our upper right trend line, so we'll zoom into lower time frames and look for potential sell opportunities, right? As you can see here, price is currently forming a trend line. Let's make it in orange, but it's not valid yet as it only connects to swings, right? For a trend line to be valid, it has to connect at least 3 swings. And since it's sitting around the upper red trend line, that's why we are looking for sell setups. We are looking. We don't sell immediately. We always wait for extra confirmation and trigger. So for now, we'll be waiting for a third swing to form around our lower orange trend line to consider it valid, and then and only then we will sell on its break downward, right? Here we go. And as usual, when the sell is activated, our stop loss would be just above the last swing high. Here we go. and we'll target a 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio, which would be inside our support zone. If we zoom out, we can see the big picture, and as usual, as mentioned, as price approaches our lower support, we will be looking for buy setups, then a new swing to form around our upper red trend line, and here we go for a full reversal, or a, an aggressive break below the support, then we'll be looking for sell setups. But for now, here's the most recent and possible scenario. From here, we'll be looking for trend following sell setup. Best of luck. Today we are going to focus on the candlestick patterns and key rejection levels or zones, as you can see here. And for those who know me know that I don't usually use this zoomed in chart. But since today we are going to focus on the key rejection levels and candlesticks, I like to zoom in as much as possible. So expect something new, and I'll try to keep it as educational as possible. So let's get started. We all know that Bitcoin has been overall bullish for a while, and the buyers or the bulls are very aggressive since the corrective movement is very flat. So impulse, flat corrective, and then impulse again. Starting from here, price seems to be stuck inside a range, and yes, it's a very big range. So we are currently trading inside this range until and until Bitcoin eventually breaks either side, either downward or upward above the 40k, then we can expect a trend continuation in case of a break upward, or a full trend reversal in case of a break downward. But for now, we are still stuck inside this range. That's why let's zoom in again and focus on the current price action. So how we know if this one is acting as support or resistance? First, let's see what happened before. Price was trading higher and we had this 30k, which is a very strong round number, and since price is below it, it may act as resistance, right? Just like the 40k here. Right, and of course the 50k is a very strong round number, and the 20k as well. So price broke our 30k, which was acting as a rejection and resistance, right? Broke it upward, then made a retest. As you can see, the buyers rejected this level with a big wick from downside. Here we go, and price traded higher. Then, of course, price rejected the 34k, went downward, then price broke above the 34k with a very big candle, right? So now after this break, now our 34k is acting as support, and here we go, price rejected it upward, and then again upward, then price broke our 30k with a very big momentum candle. Now the 34k is acting as resistance again, and as you clearly see, retest, and then price went down. And of course we have this one has been holding for a while, and we were looking for buy setups for those who checked the previous analysis. So long story short, here we go. If price is inside this floor, we'll be looking for buy and sell. If in this floor, we'll be looking for buy and sell. Let me remove the drawings, as sometimes I get overexcited. So these are our key rejection zones. Why? Because we have many rejections from here. As you can see, very big wicks. We usually focus on the wicks, or whatever you want to call it, shadow, tail. Okay, but I usually call it wick. And here as well, we have many wicks, many rejections, and of course here we have the 40k and 42k. So for now, this 34k was acting as resistance, right? So rejected it downward. Then price found support around here, and now price broke our 34k with a very aggressive candle. So now we know that our 34k is now acting as support. So support, resistance, support, resistance, here we go. And now we'll be looking for buy setups around our 34k. So that's it on Bitcoin. Long story short, that's our floor now, and that's our ceiling. So as price approaches our 40 and 42K, we'll be looking for sell setups, and as price approaches our 34K, which is our first resistance, now turned into support. So for now, we will be waiting as price is sitting inside the floor, waiting for price to get here to look for sell setups, and price to get here to look for buy setups. And of course, Bitcoin would be stuck inside this huge range until eventually price breaks it upward. Then we can expect a trend continuation. In this case, we'll be looking for buy setups on the 3 test, because as usual, if price breaks the resistance upward, it will become support, right? And we'll be looking for buy setups. And of course, price can still trade lower, break below our blue support, right? Support, and here as well. In this case, we'll be looking for sell setups on its retest. For now, the most recent possible scenarios would be, as mentioned before. Here we go. Let me fix it. We'll be looking for buy setups around here. Let me make it in blue, and we'll be looking for sell setups around this area. And of course, we'll be looking for sell setups. We'll zoom into lower time frames, and as I always say, you always follow your rules regarding entry, regarding your trading plan, risk, money, and trade management. Best of luck. As per our last analysis, we know that Bitcoin is stuck inside this range, right? And if you zoom out, we can see that Bitcoin was overall bullish, making higher highs and higher lows, and the bulls were very, very aggressive. As you can see, the corrective movement is very flat. So impulse, flat corrective, impulse, flat corrective, and so on. Flat corrective and impulse. However, starting from here, the buyers failed to make a new high. And as you can see, instead, it got stuck inside this range. So let me zoom in again, and we can see that this range is very, very big. That's why we are currently trading inside this range around our support and resistance. And first, let's make a quick recap as per our last analysis, and then we will focus on the current price action. So as mentioned in the last video, as price is currently trading inside this resistance, support and resistance, and support. The reason why we have a support here, because first of all, it was a demand area. As you can see, an aggressive movement upward from it. Then price rejected it once and twice. So now we have a very strong support, and we have a supply zone here. As you can see, price made an aggressive movement downward from it. Then price went up, filled the supply, then rejected it downward. So we have a very strong level, and of course we have our all-time high as well. So here's a very good rejection area, which acts as resistance as price is now below it. And here we have a strong rejection area. As you can see, many rejections from it, which acts currently as support. So and of course we have this one in the middle, which is a very strong one. As you can see, many rejections from it. And here we go. Let me delete the previous ones. Here was acting as resistance, rejected price downward. Then after this momentum candle, price broke our resistance upward, so it's now acting as support. So as price approaches this level again, we will be looking for buy setups, as you can see. And then when price broke it downward with a very big momentum candle, now our resistance to support is now acting as resistance again. And as you can clearly see, price rejected this level downwards. So and yes, and as per my last analysis, price was around here forming this big bullish candle. And as mentioned before, if this candle closed around here, then yes, we can say that this level, which was acting as resistance, support, resistance, it would now act as support. However, as you can clearly see, the bears pushed down at the end of the day and closed just around this area. So what we know for now from daily time frame, from candlesticks and price action perspective, that this one is still acting as resistance. So for now, Bitcoin is still trading inside this floor. So that's our rejection acting as resistance. So we'll be looking for sell setups around it, and that's our rejection which acts as support. So as price approaches this area, we'll be looking for buy setups. So for now, we are still looking for sell setups. And as you clearly see, we also have this channel from daily time frame. Here we go. So now we know that Bitcoin is still overall bearish, making lower lows and lower highs, and it's currently sitting around this area. So for now, right, for now, as per the current market conditions, we know that this one is overall bearish, and we can look for sell setups. We don't ever sell blindly. And of course, it depends on your trading plan, on your trading rules. When do you enter? What is your trigger? What's your extra confirmation? So you can follow your rules for now to look for sell setups. And unless, as I always say, unless we have this momentum candle, just like it was doing here, which didn't happen, as you can see. So unless price forms a big momentum candle here, then and only then we can say that the momentum is shifted from bearish to bullish. And in this case, if you have a momentum candle close just like this one, and this one, right? We can say that now our resistance is now acting as support, and we'll be looking for buy setups on its retest. But for now, from a candlestick and price action market structure perspective, we are still overall bearish, and we are looking for sell setups on lower time frames. And of course, as price approaches our lower support in blue, we'll be looking for buy setups, unless, as usual, unless price breaks it down aggressively, then our support would become resistance, and we'll be looking for sell setups on its retest. So, and as I always say, don't try to predict what price would do around a certain support and resistance. Trading is reactive and not predictive, so always let the market do the first move, and then we will act accordingly. Okay, so it's just like chess. Wait for price to react around this area, and then we'll decide if this one is acting as resistance, we'll be looking for sell setups, or if price is now or this one is acting as support, and we'll be looking for buy setups. But for now, and as per the current market conditions, this one is still acting as resistance, and we are still looking for sell setups. And long story short, we'll be looking for buy here, sell here, and unless price breaks it downward, then we'll be looking for sell, and so on. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next one. So as we all know that Bitcoin broke our 34K level upward with a very big momentum candle. And as mentioned before, this one was acting as resistance, pushing price down. Then price broke it upward with a very big momentum candle. Then when this happened, our resistance is now turned into support, right? So resistance, break upward, then support, and again, price broke it down with a very big momentum candle. So our support is now turned into a resistance, and we could look for sell setups. Now price broke this one again with a very big momentum candle. Then now the 34K is now acting as support. And we can see that price is now making higher highs and higher lows. So impulse, corrective, impulse, and now we are in the corrective phase. So as price approaches this area, we can start to look for buy setups, and of course, as usual, you always follow your trading plan. So, for example, in this case, I personally zoom into lower time frames like H4, H1, or even N30 time frame to look for reversal patterns around here. Don't ever buy or sell blindly around a certain level. Always wait for extra confirmation. So for now, as you can see, the bears are taking control. So we want to see a shift in momentum around here, that the bulls are taking over again. So as mentioned, impulse, corrective, impulse, now we're on corrective phase, and we will be looking for buy setups to catch the next impulse, around this area. And of course, as price approaches our all-time high and this very strong area, we'll be looking for sell setups, unless here we go. Unless price breaks aggressively below the 34K again, as you can see like this, then our support would become resistance, and we'll be looking for setup around this area. And of course, if price breaks it down, then our next support would be around here. So long story short, here we go. We will be waiting for Bitcoin to approach this area to zoom into lower time frames and look for potential buy setups to catch the next impulse movement. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next one. As we all know that Bitcoin broke its previous all-time high, which was around 40 and 42K, right? With a big momentum candle. So now our previous resistance is now acting as a potential support. So that's why, as mentioned in my previous picture analysis, I'm waiting for Bitcoin, if possible, to make that deep retest to look for buy setups, for trend following buy setups, since we are overall bullish, obviously, and we have this trend line which acts as a non-horizontal support. So this area would be a very strong area, and which I called a war zone, because we have the confluence or the intersection of this red trend line and this previous resistance turned into support. Let me read the drawing. Sometimes I get overexcited, and here we go. So for now, Bitcoin is sitting at around a very strong round number, which is the 40K. And as mentioned before, since we don't have a typical support resistance, which would be found after many failed attempts to break above or below a level, then we'll go for our round numbers to look for sell or buy setups, as we consider that these round numbers are our possible key rejection zones. And as you can see, these round numbers are very, very strong. We can see that price broke upward. Now it becomes and now it became, since it's in the past, it became support around the 30K. And here we go, we have the 40K price rejected the 40K, right? So now price broke the 40K upward. So if possible, if price will make a retest around here, we'll be looking for buy setups, right? Since the next round number, which acts as a rejection, as a resistance, is around the 50K. Just like here, 30K support, 40K resistance. Now 40K is broken upward, so 40K is acting as support and 50K is acting as resistance, right? And of course, again and again, unless price goes parabolic from here, which is also possible, right? Unless price goes parabolic from here and breaks this one upward, here we go, breaks this one upward, then and only then our 40K, just like the 40K, our 50K would become a support rejection area, and we'll be looking for trend following buy setups on its retest. And the possible next resistance rejection area would be around the 60K. So 30, 40, 50, and next would have the 60K that we may find rejections from it. But for now, since we are sitting around the 50K, we'll not sell immediately. And of course, I know that many traders are just like me. They don't like to sell Bitcoin, right? We always try to find opportunities to add more Bitcoins, right? So many traders have bought around 10K or even 3K like me, and they are holding and adding more long positions, of course, with extra confirmation on the next when price makes a corrective to catch the next impulse. Then we'll add more and more and more, right? So for now, we may have a possible, here we go, we may have a possible retest for the opportunity to add more longs, right? But how can we know that Bitcoin will start a corrective movement now? First of all, because we have the 50K, while looking for a possible for a possible corrective movement, and we're not looking for corrective movement around 36 or 32 or 22, right? We're looking around big fat strong ground numbers like 40, 50, 60, right? So that's why we always zoom into lower time frames and look for extra confirmation. And if you remember, I posted this one like two or 3 days ago, that here we go, that Bitcoin is overall bullish and the upper one is acting as an overbought area. And as I highlighted, these purple circles, what I called war zones, right? As here we have the confluence of this horizontal support, as you can see in orange, and this previous all-time high now turned into support, right? And the upper side, we have, here we go. We have the 50K. That's why I told you that I prefer to wait for price to approach the 50K. It doesn't have to touch the exact level, but at least approach, just like here, the 50K to get more liquidity to be able to push price lower. right? So here's a very strong area to look for longs. Of course, not exactly here and here as well, right? Around this area, the intersection of these two trend lines and red zone would be a very hot spot to look for, of course, extra confirmation to go long, right? And here would be a very strong area that price may reject downward for the corrective movement to start. But as I told you before, nothing is confirmed yet. Price can still break it upward, just like we showed you from daily. And then at this all-time high, 50K will become support and will be looking for buy setups on retest. But for now, as per the current market conditions, Bitcoin is still trading below the 50K and around this upper orange trend lines, which acts as an overbought area as mentioned before. That's why we also zoom in and in to find potential sell setups, right? And of course, as I told you before, you don't have to sell. Just you can know that the corrective movement is just getting started. It all depends on your trading style and on your vision on crypto and on Bitcoin. And as we can see, we can draw with this trend line by connecting these two swings. And yes, it's a steep trend line, but that's the only trend line that we can draw for now. And here we go. Price is forming now the third swing. And what I usually like to see on trend lines is three big swings and not a very small swing like this. So I would like to see three big swings to confirm that this trend line is strong and valid. So for now we have two big swings, one, two, and we'll be waiting for this one to get a little bit bigger, just like this one. It doesn't have to be that big, but to confirm that it is a valid swing, a strong swing with many information, liquidity, and etc. Right? And we also have what I call rich pump, right, which helps us catch explosive movement in the market. Here we go. Here we have a rich pump, and we previously had like a head and shoulders pattern, left, head, and right shoulder. Here's our neckline. Sorry, here's our neckline and a confirmation after a break above it. Now we have a rich pump, but of course the price can still break upward. But meanwhile, until Bitcoin breaks above the 50K, the corrective movement would be expected if and only if, as I always say, if and only if trading is reactive and not predictive. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit tired, so we will be waiting for this swing to get formed, and then and only then, it doesn't have to be that big, but at least we want a small upward movement like this to be confirmed, and then after a candle close below this swing, we can say that the corrective movement may start, and of course, as it approaches our lower orange zone, which acts as support, and red previous high to resistance, we'll be looking, of course, as I always do it like this, for here we go, for longs, to add more longs. And of course, as price approaches this area, we'll be looking, for example, for trend lines, for double bottom patterns that will act as extra confirmation and trigger when its neckline or last swing is broken upward. Then we can say that yes, we can add more longs now and ride Bitcoin for the next impulse movement. But for now, I'll be waiting for this one to form, for this deep retest, if possible, of course, as I mentioned earlier, and we're waiting for this swing to form, and then we can say that the corrective movement is possible and may start. That's it for Bitcoin. That's my view, and I hope you like it, and I see you on the next one. So as per my last picture analysis, as you can see here, I posted this one a couple of days ago. We expected that we might have a possible corrective movement from here. And the reason why is because for those who didn't understand, I want to keep this video short and focus on the last price action to know what are the next possible scenarios. For those who didn't understand why we were looking for a possible correction movement, simply because we had this here we go. We have this nice impulse movement upward, right? Where price broke two key rejection zones in a row, the 20 and 30K, to finally find rejection around the 40K. And that's exactly what happened recently. Price made a big impulse movement and it's now overextended, where price broke two key rejection zones in a row, just like here, 1 and 2, to finally find rejection around the and we were expecting that price would finally find rejection around the third one, and that's exactly what happened. And of course, we didn't sell immediately. We always zoom into lower time frames to look for extra confirmation and trigger. We want the sellers to prove to us that they are taking over, and that's exactly what happened. Now we'll zoom into lower time frames and look how and when we confirmed that we are now in a corrective phase. So long story short, for now price made this retest, right? And here we go. Here we have the projections for the retest. We have the projection in blue for the impulse, and here we go. We have this one, which is this one, the projection for the retest, and here we go. So this one is equal to this one, and this one is equal to this one, right? So now price made this corrective movement just like before, and many traders are asking me what are the next possible movements now. We can't really be sure, and for those who know me know that I'm always late, right? I prefer to be late than I prefer to be late with extra confirmation, and I don't jump in and try to catch the exact tops and bottoms. So for now in Bitcoin, I'll be waiting. I'll show you exactly what I will be waiting for on weekly time frame. First of all, this candle isn't closed yet, and we still have like 5 days, right? So price can still go up and form, just like here, a very big wick, right? If you zoom in, you can see that this week price pushed down, and then at the end of the week price pushed up, forming like a very big wick from the downside. And so this is still very possible. And yes, we might also have a big engulfing candle. So price can still go down and close here. In this case, would have a big an engulfing pattern, and we can say that from a long-term perspective, the sellers are now in full control. And then in this case, a movement around this 40K, because it's our first key rejection zone, which is acting obviously now as support, would be expected, and we'll be looking for buy setups. So let's take it step by step. For now, Bitcoin is currently trading inside this floor. So as usual, we'll be looking for buy setups here and sell setups here. And of course, if price, let me show you. Here we go. Here's our second key rejection area. If price broke above the 60K, then a movement till the 70K would be expected, and so on, right? So, but for now, let's take it step by step. As mentioned, price is currently sitting here. So first of all, we need to zoom into lower time frames. Here we go. So here's our view from daily time frame, and we can also see that this candle isn't closed yet, right? So we had an impulse corrective movement around here, and then we had the next impulse movement. So this one, and if you remember, I posted a video about this one. This one is currently acting as support, and so on, right? So unless the sellers manage to close like this, a big bearish candle, then we can say that this one is finally broken, and our support in this case is broken, and it can act as a potential resistance. And of course, in this case, we'll be looking for sell setups on the retest. And of course, as price approaches the 40K, we'll be looking for buy setups. So that's first. First of all, we'll be waiting for the daily candle close. If it closed like this, then we can say that this one is broken, and you know the rest of the story. And if this one closed as rejection, then we can say that this zone is still holding and is still acting as support, and we are still looking for buy setups. And even if we zoom into M30 time frame, we can see that here we go. And as mentioned before, we always wait for extra confirmation and trigger. In this case, price broke the previous low, and here we go. And around here, the corrective movement is now confirmed, and as you can see, price made a bearish movement, right? So if we zoom out to daily to H1 time frame, here we go. And I also posted this one that we'll be looking for sell here, and we'll be looking for buy here, right? So price went down. Now it's sitting around this area. We didn't buy yet. We are still waiting for extra confirmation. We want to know if the buyers are strong enough to reject this area. Let me delete these ones for now as we don't need it. I deleted the 50k. No, we have to keep it. And here we go. So for now, let me fix it. Give me a moment. Yes, so for now, the sellers are in control. We are still in a corrective phase, but we can't really be sure if the sellers are strong enough to close below this area. Yes, it did close on H1 time frame, but the H1 time frame is not enough to break an entire area, right? That's why we always wait for the extra confirmation from daily time frame. If this daily time frame closes like this, then we can see that now our support is broken as mentioned before, and we'll be looking for sell setups around this area because it would be the intersection of this orange trend line and this previous support turned into a resistance. But for now, until this happens, right, to confirm the break, we will be looking for buy setups, and as usual we'll zoom into lower time frames, and for example we can draw this trend line for now, but it's not valid yet, so we'll be waiting for a third swing to form around it, and then we'll buy on break upward, right, because he would be our last swing, and we'll always buy and sell when the last swing high, in this case because we're entering a buy, when the last swing high is broken upward. We want the buyers to prove to us that they are now taking over, right? But for now, from a short-term perspective, we are still overall bearish on Bitcoin, and we'll be waiting for the daily time frame to confirm if this one is finally broken or not, right? And until the daily time frame confirms that this one is broken, we would be looking for buy setups, and a possible rejection will be expected from here. So long story short, for now we'll be waiting, right? We'll be waiting for this daily candle to close, and of course we also have this entire area, which is a very strong rejection area. So we want the daily candle to close like this below this entire area to confirm that now our support is turned into a resistance. So for now we'll be waiting, and best of luck. So for now, as per my last video analysis, we know that Bitcoin is still overall bullish, and because it's sitting around a key rejection area, which is obviously acting as support. And of course, unless the sellers manage to break below this area. So we want to see a bearish candle close below the 48k from daily or weekly time frame, doesn't really matter, but we want to see a big bearish candle closing below it. In this case, then and only then this area would become a resistance, and a movement down would be expected. In this case, we can look for sell setups around here, and as price approaches the 38, 40 or 42k around this area, we'll be looking for buy setups. But for now, let's take it step by step. And until this happens, Bitcoin has to break below this area, right? And for now, this is a weekly candle. So, and we still have like 3-4 days for this weekly candle to close. And yes, as mentioned before, this candle can still close just like this one. As you can see, a very big wick, so this one can still go up and close like this. And of course, in this case, and even now, this one is still stuck inside this floor. So let me give you a quick glimpse. So price was going up, broke the first key rejection area, then broke the second key rejection area to finally find resistance around the third one, right? And then we had this rejection, and that's exactly what happened here. Price broke the first key rejection area, then the second key rejection area to finally find resistance around around the third one, and we had this movement. And yes, we can also see that this candle is currently forming just like this one, and we can't really know from now, since we still have like 3-4 days. This one can still close like an engulfing candle and close like here. And in this case, as mentioned, a movement till our 40 or our next key rejection area, 40k would be expected. But for now, let's take it step by step and go to the daily time frame. And as mentioned in my last video, if and only if Bitcoin managed to close below this area, because we also have many rejections from here. So if this one closes below this one from from a daily perspective, we want a daily candle to close below this area around here. Then we can say that this zone is now broken, and it can act as resistance, and a movement around here would be expected. And as you can see, we didn't have a candle close yet, and price formed this wick rejection, and price is now going up. But for now, the question is, will we see a movement to here, or will price form a new big bearish candle to close below it? Right? To know this, we need to zoom into H1 time frame, and if we zoom out, we can see that Bitcoin was trading inside this big channel. Here we go. So we're overall bullish. Price is making higher highs and higher lows from a long-term perspective and trading inside this channel. So now our channel is broken, right? But it isn't broken objectively. What I mean by objectively is price didn't form a new swing here and then breaks it down. In this case, yes, we can say that now our trend line is broken and the zone is broken, and a movement to here would be expected. Now what we saw is price went down, right, before forming a new swing around it, and then went up again to go inside this channel again. But to know if price will go up inside this channel again or go down and break it downwards, first of all, as we see, we are now preparing for an uptrend, but it's not confirmed yet. As we can see, we have a higher high first, and then we have a higher low. So now we are almost ready. But for the bullish trend to start, we have to break above the previous high again, right? So we want to see, delete them. Here we go. So we want to see price breaking above this area, which would be around the 52K, right? To confirm that now we are in an uptrend and price broke inside this channel again. Then of course we can see an impulse corrective and then impulse till our next key rejection area around the 58 and 60K. Or first of all, we're waiting for this one to confirm the break, or if price managed to go lower, then as mentioned from daily, to confirm the break downward, we want to see a big daily candle like this closing. We have to see a daily candle closing below this area. Then we can say that now our zone is broken downward, and here we go, a bearish movement would be expected. So Bitcoin is currently sitting inside a very interesting area. So long story short, if we have this big upward, then the short-term bullish trend would be confirmed and a bullish movement would be expected in this case as usual. In this case, if price goes up, then what we might see, if price goes up, we might see just like we saw previously, right? So price goes up, so in this case, price went up and then stuck inside this range. So if price now goes up, then it would be stuck inside this range, and as usual, sell, buy, or will be looking for buy and sell setups until eventually price breaks above the key rejection or breaks below this key rejection area. But for now, let's wait and see what happens. We want the daily candle close below this area to confirm the bearish movement, or for now we are still overall bullish, and price is rejecting this entire area, but we need the bulls to confirm it by breaking above this area. That's it for Bitcoin, and I'll see you on the next one. Hello traders, Rich here, and here's a quick but detailed update on Bitcoin. As per our last analysis, we were waiting for this candle to close to decide if it's going to be an engulfing pattern, just like what happened, or the sellers will kick in and reject this zone upwards. So for now, as per the current market conditions, we have this engulfing pattern and price broke below this area. So it's now acting as a potential resistance support turned into a resistance, right? So, and price is currently retesting it. So we'll be looking for sell setups on lower time frames unless price manage to break it upward from weekly or even daily time frame. If we zoom into daily time frame, we can see that this big engulfing pattern isn't doesn't look as strong as on daily time frame because we've got many rejection candles here, right? So for now, this zone is now acting as a potential resistance because price broke it downward. But since the break wasn't very aggressive from daily time frame, we can still price can still break it upward for it to become support again. And this case we'll be looking for buy setups. So long story short, on weekly time frame we can see an aggressive break, but on daily time frame we can see many rejections. So for now, we are looking for sell setups around this area as price is currently retesting it, unless price, as mentioned, makes or forms a big bullish candle. In this case, it would be turned into support again. That's why we'll zoom into lower time frame for now and look for potential sell setups. And we can see that price was making higher highs and higher lows, right? And now failed to make a higher high, which means that the buyers aren't strong enough to push price higher as that they were doing before. But that doesn't mean that we should sell now. We always wait for extra confirmation and trigger. When this happens, price formed a lower high. It's only an early alert that a potential reversal might happen, but we always wait for extra confirmation. And we can see that we've got a head and shoulders pattern from lower time frames. Here's our head. Let me draw it in an orange circle as usual. So here's our head. Here we go. Left shoulder, and right shoulder, right? And from a weekly perspective, this is now broken and it's turned into a resistance. And currently, price is retesting and in fact, sitting inside it. But to get extra confirmation that the sellers are now in full control, we need to wait for a break below the neckline. And the neckline is always starting from the left shoulder, right? So here's our left shoulder. We always check where's the start of the left shoulder. Here we go. So we need a momentum candle close below this area to confirm that the sellers are now taking over, and in this case when this happens we can expect a potential bearish movement. And as long as this happens, Bitcoin would be overall bullish, and this one would be a fake out and price can continue to trade higher, right? Because as mentioned, it's only an early alert and it would be confirmed after a break below the neckline or below the previous swing low. But for extra confirmation, let's wait for this area. And of course, it will also be a break below this entire zone, below the 48 or even 47.5. Right? Meanwhile, until this happens, Bitcoin would be overall bullish and can still, as mentioned from daily, form a very big bullish candle here. In this case, this resistance will turn into support and we'll be looking for buy setups on three test. But for now, and as per the current market conditions, we'll be waiting for this one. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next one. Hello traders, Rich here, and here's a quick but detailed update on Bitcoin. As usual, if you guys like video analysis, let me know in the comments or simply leave a like. So let's get started. So as per my last video analysis, we know that price or Bitcoin was still sitting around this support, and the reason why still acting as support is because price failed to break it with two big bearish candles. As you can see, we had only one big bearish candle, then price failed to make another bearish candle, full bearish candle, and instead made these three small candles with a big wick from the downside, which means that this zone is still holding. And moreover, we can clearly see that the buyers even kicked in here to confirm that they are still in control. So around here on the retest, we could look for buy setups, right? And anyway, let's focus on the current price action now. We can see that Bitcoin is currently sitting around the upper bound of this floor. So this one is acting as resistance, the 60K zone. and this one is acting as support, the 50k zone. So for now we can expect a corrective movement till around our 50k zone. And we also have this trend line. If we can draw it, we can see it even better from lower time frames. So as Bitcoin approaches this area, it would be a very strong area to look for trend following buy setups, because we've got the intersection of this non-horizontal support, that trend line, and this zone, which is a very strong zone. So for now, long story short, Bitcoin is sitting around resistance. So we've got two options. First of all, we need to see a retest around here, as mentioned, to look for buy setups. And of course, Bitcoin can still break this 60k zone upward for it to become support. In this case, we need to see two big bullish candles, one and two, to close above it to confirm that this zone is now broken and may act as a potential support. In this case, if price breaks it upward with two big bullish candles, then of course we'll be looking for new buy setups to form around it. And then of course the next one would become the next resistance, right? So long story short, again, we'll be looking for a corrective movement now to look for buy setups here, right, for to catch the next impulse. So impulse corrective, we are now in the end of the impulse. We may see a corrective, or the impulse will continue to push higher to find rejection around the 70k. So we'll be waiting for this corrective movement, and now we'll zoom into lower time frames to know if the corrective movement would start or not, right? Because we're still sitting around resistance, so we want to see if price will go up from here straight, or it will go down. If it goes up, we'll be looking for buy setups here. Now we know where we're sending the market. Let's zoom into lower time frames and to confirm if the corrective movement is possible, and if yes, when and how. So if we zoom into H1 time frame or even M30 time frame for a better view, we can see that Bitcoin has been overall bullish for a while, especially after breaking above the 50k. So we are overall bullish. Price is making higher highs and higher lows, right? So big impulse movement, small corrective, big impulse movement, and you can see that the impulse is getting flatter around here. So very big and steep. We had a very big and steep impulse previously, as you can see. Let me show you in a clean example. So steep impulse, and now you can see that the impulse movement are getting flatter. So it was like this, now it's almost like this, right? So we can know that the buyers are losing momentum, but of course the sellers didn't prove control yet. For the sellers to prove control, they have to break below the previous low. So as you can see, price is making higher lows, so the bulls are still in control. And even though, yes, we know that the buyers are getting weaker, but the sellers are not in full control yet. So for the sellers to take control and for the corrective movement to start, the sellers has to break below the previous low, right? So that's first. And of course, here we go. That's why we have a channel. Now we are expecting another bullish movement for this swing. Let me draw it and show you an example. Here we go. So we're expecting another big, another bullish movement for this swing to be complete, because we have 1, 2, right? So this lower trend line is not valid yet, as it is only connecting in this case, two swing lows, right? So we need the price to form a third swing low, and then the lower red trend line will be confirmed to be valid, and then we can sell, or we will not sell. It depends on your trading style. I personally don't sell Bitcoin. So, but in this case, if this happens, we can know that a corrective movement is about to start. And as mentioned previously, as price approaches this area, which is the intersection of this red trend line and this very strong support, we'll be looking for buy setups to add more Bitcoin and to catch the next impulse movement. And meanwhile, until this happens, until price forms the swing and breaks it downward, or even price can still break it downward before forming this swing, right? So in this case, if this happens, the price should break below this swing low, because for now this is the last low. So the sellers has to break below a low to confirm that they are currently in control, and even for a short period of time. So the first scenario is like this, or the second scenario is from here, a free fall for price to confirm that they are in control. But let's keep it this way, okay? So for the sellers to take over and to start the corrective movement, they have to break below the swing low. And of course, until this happens, until price breaks below the last low, it would be overall bullish. And as mentioned from daily, the price or Bitcoin can still break above the 50K with two big bullish candles from daily time frame for our resistance to become support. In this case, if this happens, let me show you. If this happens, they have to break two big bullish candles above this area. We will be looking for buy setups on, of course, on the retest. Okay, but not for now. As per the current market conditions, we are still below the 50K area. That's why we are looking for a corrective move around here to look for buy setups. As per my last video analysis, we were waiting for Bitcoin to break below the previous low to confirm the start of the corrective movement. But don't get me wrong, like many traders asked me, I'm not going to sell Bitcoin. I've been holding Bitcoin for 4 years straight and I always try to find opportunities to add more longs. That's why I wait for the corrective movement to start, and then at the end of the corrective movement, which would be around the support or a demand, I will be looking with extra confirmation for buy setups to catch the next impulse movement. And the reason why we were looking for a corrective movement, a potential corrective movement around here, is because price was sitting around a rejection area. And we can see this rejection area better from daily time frame, right? Let me zoom in. So currently Bitcoin is trading inside what I call a trading around this floor. So this is our resistance, or this is our ceiling, and this is our support, which is our floor, right? So that's why we'll be looking for the corrective movement around here, and then we will be buying Bitcoin if the price gets around this area to catch the next impulse move. Next impulse movement. Just like here, we waited for the corrective to catch the next impulse, and so on. So here, corrective, we catch the next impulse, and so on. So long story short, for now, the price is currently sitting around the upper one, and yes, it didn't break the upper resistance yet for it to become support. Just like I mentioned in the last video, we have two scenarios. We're waiting for Bitcoin to get here to look for buy setups to add more longs, or if Bitcoin breaks above this one with at least two big bullish candles, then and only then we can say that our resistance is now turned into support, and we'll be looking for to add more longs here, right? And as you clearly see, this one Bitcoin only closed with one big bullish candle. So we need another one to confirm that this one is now acting as support, right? So for now, this one is still acting as resistance, and a corrective movement is still expected, unless, of course. So for now, we'll be waiting for this movement to look for to add more longs, and unless price can still go up and form another big bullish candle. In this case, the resistance would be broken, and we'll be looking for buy setups when price retests this area. So let me zoom into M30 time frame again. We can see that here, let me show you. So here price, because we had this trend line 1, 2, and 3. So as you can see, price didn't break below it, and as I mentioned in the video, as long as or until the price breaks below it, Bitcoin is still overall bullish and can still trade higher and higher. And that's exactly what happened. The price didn't break below the previous low, so we're overall bullish, right? And price kept trading higher to finally find resistance around the 60K. So now if we zoom out and we don't need this anymore as it's no longer valid, we can see that we can draw this trend line. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a valid trend line, and then price broke below its previous swing. So now we can know that the corrective movement is going to start. So that's exactly why I'll be waiting for Bitcoin to approach the next support, which is starting from here. Let me show you from daily, which would be starting from here, right? So starting from like 51K. Let me zoom into M30 again. So here we go. So now I'm waiting for Bitcoin to approach this area, as mentioned previously, starting from 51, around this entire area, to look for buy setups. For example, if price kept trading lower like this, maybe we'll be able to draw a trend line, or maybe the price will form a double bottom pattern. And anyway, it all depends on your trading plan and trading strategy. But as per my trading plan, I'm waiting for Bitcoin to approach at least this area to start to look for buy setups to add more longs. And meanwhile, and yes, meanwhile, Bitcoin can still go up and break this one from the daily time frame again. And in this case, we'll be waiting for the retest to add more longs. So that's it for Bitcoin. Long story short, we still have two possible scenarios, waiting for this one to get till around here to look for more longs, or if price breaks it upward, then we'll be looking for more longs around here. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next. We all know that Bitcoin has been struggling around the 60K for a while, right? But the reason why it's still acting as resistance is because price didn't form two big bullish candles yet. We only had one big bullish candle, but we need another one to confirm that the price or the bulls are very strong to be able to break it upward for it to become support again. So first of all, we'll be waiting for Bitcoin to make another big bullish candle closing at least above the previous one to confirm that this one is now acting as support. All right, and let me give you some examples. For example, here the price formed two big bullish candle, so now this one is acting as support and we could look for buy setups on the retest. Here as well, price formed two big bullish candles, now it's acting as support. We can look for buy here and here, and however, here price didn't break it with two big bullish candles, only one candle, one shy candle with a big wick from the upside. That's why this one was still acting around as resistance here, and we were looking for sell setups. And here price broke it upward with a very big bullish candle. So we need a very big bullish candle or two small full bullish candles. Okay, and of course here as well, here price confirmed that this one is broken and we were looking for buy setups here. And as I mentioned in the previous video, this one is still acting as support here as price didn't break it with two big bearish candles. We only had one big full bearish candle and then price formed many wicks. It was acting as support here. We were looking for buy setups, and of course, when price breaks it upward, we could look for buy here and so on. So for now, and long story short, I just like to give you some examples. So for now, this resistance is still acting as resistance, and we are still speculating a bearish movement from here. And we'll zoom in a bit to know how to know that the corrective movement is about to start. Right? If the corrective movement is confirmed and is about to start, we'll be looking for buy setups around here. And now we'll zoom into H4 to see exactly why we are looking for buy setups around here. Unless price trades up from here and breaks it upward, and as mentioned previously with a big bullish candle, and it has to be above this one. Then and only then we can say that our resistance is broken, and then we'll be looking for buy setups on the retest. Right? So long story short, we are speculating a corrective to look for buy setups around here, or if price breaks it upward, then we'll be looking for buy setups on the retest. And here's our view from H4 time frame. If we've got this corrective movement, this retest, then we'll be looking for buy setups starting from this. Let me zoom out. Here we go. Right, so starting from these these orange trend lines, we'll be looking for buy setups to add more longs in our Bitcoin, and to know when the corrective one is about to start, we can zoom into H1 time frame. Here we go, and we can see that this one is now overall bullish from a short-term perspective. So for the corrective movement to start, the price has to break below the previous low. So now the bulls are in control from a long-term, right? From a long-term and from a short-term perspective. To have a corrective, we need the sellers to kick in at least from a short-term perspective. So we need the sellers to break below this one. Then we can expect a movement around here, and we'll be adding. Of course, we'll be zooming into lower time frames and to look for extra confirmation to add more longs on Bitcoin around this area. And of course, if price now, let me zoom in. So if price now forms a new low, then it would be our new low. So now this is the last low, right? If price forms a new low here, then it would be the new last swing. And if price breaks it downward, then we can expect a corrective movement from here. And we can also You can also maybe draw this trend line. It's still an idea because it's only connecting two swings. So if price forms a new swing around it and then breaks it downward, then again and again, we can confirm the corrective movement is about to start. For now, would be overall bullish, and Bitcoin can still break this one up with a big bullish candle from daily time frame, and it has to be above the previous daily candle, and as mentioned. And Yes, basically that's it on Bitcoin. That's it. And long story short, again and again, we'll be waiting for the corrective movement to be confirmed. When price breaks below the previous low, then we'll be looking for buy here. Or if price trades higher from here, it has to close above the previous daily candle. Then we'll be looking for buy setups when around here on the retest. That's it, and I'll see you on the next one. As per my last picture analysis, price was around here, and I mentioned that if price breaks below this swing, which is the last swing that's sitting around the trend line, the corrective movement would be confirmed, right? So as you can see, correction, confirmation, and that's what happened. So we are currently in a corrective phase. So what next? If we zoom out to H4 time frame, we can see that Bitcoin is currently sitting around this orange trend line, which acts as a potential non-horizontal support. So starting from here now, since price is sitting around it, we'll be looking for buy setups, right, to catch the next impulse movement. And of course, knowing that Bitcoin can still test this 50K support area, which is from daily time frame, let me show you. So Bitcoin can still test this around the 50K before going up, right? So that's why we don't buy blindly now. We zoom into lower time frames to get that extra confirmation. So we are currently in a bearish market, and yes, and even from a short-term perspective, we are currently overall bearish, right? And you don't want to buy a bearish market. We always wait for extra confirmation and trigger. So now what we know is that we are currently in a corrective phase, and we are looking for buy setups to add more longs to our Bitcoin. But the question is where? We can add here, we can look for buy setups here, or if price, as mentioned previously, or if price, now we are overall bearish, right? Price is making low lows and lower highs, so price can still break this 50K before going up. So long story short, we'll be looking for buy now, knowing that Bitcoin can still go down before going up. That's why we always wait for extra confirmation. If we zoom in, we can see that now we can draw this potential trend line. It's still a potential trend line because it's only connecting two swings, right? And for our channel to be valid, it has to connect at least three swings. So that's why we'll be waiting for price to form a third swing around it, and then and only then we'll buy after a momentum candle close above it, right? So and of course, until this happens, Bitcoin would be overall bearish and can still trade lower and lower. Let me zoom out. So Bitcoin can still trade lower, as mentioned previously, and test this one before going up, right? But because it's sitting around a potential non-horizontal support, we'll be looking for buy setups. But as usual, extra confirmation is always needed. So for now, what I will do is that I will draw this one as well, right? And we'll be waiting for this to happen to buy to confirm that the bullish impulse would be starting, or unless this until this happens, this one would be overall bearish and can still test this one. In this case, we'll extend maybe this trend line, or even we'll be looking for new buy setups to form. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next one. As we clearly see, Bitcoin has been stuck inside this range for a while between the 50 and 60K. And first, we expected this rejection around the 60K, then around the 50K, right? If you remember. And now Bitcoin is approaching the 60K again. So now what? This movement reminds me of this movement where Bitcoin were stuck inside the range between the 30 and 40K, where we had the first impulse, second, third, to finally find support for the last time around the 30K, and then Bitcoin went all the way up to make a new all-time high around the 50K. So now I'm not saying that Bitcoin should fall from here and before going up. You always wait for extra confirmation and trigger, and simply because Bitcoin is approaching the 60K, just like we did here, if you remember, we zoomed into lower time frames to confirm this corrective movement. And the case, if this happens, then of course we'll be looking for opportunities to add more longs around the 50K, just like we did here. And of course, Bitcoin can still trade higher and make this full bullish candle, and it has to close above this one, because for price to break a certain rejection area, it has to break it with two full bullish candles, or in the case of breaking below a support, it has to break it below two full bearish candles, and we only had one here, so we need another big bullish candle. In this case, we can say that now Bitcoin broke above the 60k and it's now acting as a potential support. In this case, we'll be adding, or we'll be looking for opportunities to add more long around the 60k, of course, on when the price retests around this area. So long story short, let me read the drawings. Long story short, we'll be looking for a rejection here for extra confirmation on lower time frames, and we will zoom in now in a bit. If this happens, we'll be adding more longs or looking for potential buy setups around the 50k. And if Bitcoin forms another big bullish candle now in the next couple of days, then we'll be looking for opportunities to add more longs around the 60k. Now that we know where we stand in the market and what to look for, let's zoom into lower time frames and see how it goes, if we will get this extra confirmation for the corrective or not. And this is what we saw previously. That's the first impulse. Then we had this second impulse. Here's our confirmation, and here's our confirmation, right? And now Bitcoin is making the third movement upward and around the 60k again and again, just like here and here. So now we will not expect this corrective movement unless we had our Bitcoin forms a third swing around the lower orange trend line, because for now it's only connecting two swings. So let me show to you 1 and 2, right? So 1 and 2. Always wait for a third swing to form around it for the trend line to be valid, and then we'll enter sell on this last swing break downward. And of course, we will not enter sell. We're just speculating that we might have a corrective movement. Okay, so let me do the drawings again, and that's it. For the corrective movement to be confirmed, we need to see this movement from here till here, and of course you will see me making like a trigger, but I will not put trigger here because we will not sell. And of course it depends on your trading style. I personally don't sell Bitcoin. I just know from here that we might have a corrective movement, and I will be ready to add more longs around the 50k, unless, right? And meanwhile, until this happens, Bitcoin would be overall bullish. And as mentioned before, from our second scenario from daily time frame, it can still break above the 60k with a bullish daily candle. And in this case, we will be looking for opportunities to add more longs on the retest. That's it for Bitcoin, and I'll see you on the next one. As per my last video analysis, we're waiting for Bitcoin to approach the 50k to look for buy setups, or for Bitcoin to close above this bullish candle, which means to close above the 62k to confirm that this area is now broken and can act as a potential support. In this case, of course, we'll be looking for buy setups on the retest. So for now, this is what's happening. But the daily candle isn't closed yet. So we're waiting for this daily candle to close to confirm that it's broken, because it can still close as a wick, right? Just like what happened here. Tried to break it to break it upward, and then made a wick from the upper side. And that's why we always wait for two big bullish candles to confirm that this area is broken. So we've got one here, but we didn't have another one. That's why, as mentioned last week, we'll be waiting for another bullish candle closing above it, and that's what's happening now, as I mentioned now. So long story short, we'll be waiting for this daily candle to close. Unless it closed like this as a wick, then this resistance zone would be still holding, and a small retracement may be expected before the bullish movement starts. And if this candle closed like this, or even higher, of course it will be better, then we'll be looking for buy setups on the retest. And if we zoom into H4 time frame, we can see that the view even clearer. That's it. And we can see that Bitcoin is currently trading inside these two green trend lines. Let me make it a little bit lower, and that's it. So we are overall bullish, and when price close, as mentioned, from daily time frame, we'll be looking for buy setups on the retest, and the first rejection area would be around the 68 or 70k, where we have the intersection of this trend line and of course the 70k, which is a very strong round number. So that's it. I'll be waiting for Bitcoin to approach here to look for buy setups on lower time frames, and for those who know that I zoom into H1 and M30 and look for bullish reversal patterns in this case, which can be an inverse head and shoulders, a trend line break, a double bottom pattern, and so on. And when Bitcoin approaches this area, we can look for sell setups, not to sell Bitcoin, of course, just to know that the corrective mode is about to start, and then we'll be adding more longs around the trend line. So anyway, let's wait for it and let's monitor the price action step by step. For now, let's wait for the break and then we'll be looking for buy setups on the retest. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next. As per my last video analysis, we were waiting for Bitcoin to close bullish above this bullish candle to confirm that the zone is now broken and may act as support. And that's what happened for now. That's why, as mentioned previously, we'll be looking for buy setups now to catch the next impulse movement, and the next rejection that might act as a resistance is around this area, around the 70k. And if we zoom into H4, we can see that we also have our lower green trend line, which has a non-horizontal support, and this area is the intersection of the 60k and 58, of course, and this green trend line. That's why we are looking for buy setups around this area. And as I mentioned, as price approaches this area, we can see some rejection from here. In this case, we'll be looking for buy setups around the green trend line one more time. So now from H4 and daily, we can know that we are around support and we are looking for buy setups. If we zoom into H1 time frame, we can see that we now have a trend line forming. It's not valid yet, it's still an idea. And let me make it in red as usual, and we can even make like an offset like this. So for now, for our conditions to be met, we'll be waiting for Bitcoin to form a third swing around our upper red trend line. We can't really know where this one would form, here, or here, but anyway, let's make it as a projection, as we want to see a third swing around our upper red trend line to consider it valid. And then, as usual, for those who know me, the confirmation, the next impulse confirmation would be confirmed after a momentum candle close above this area, and you will see me doing something like this for the trigger. And because here we have, as mentioned previously, the non-horizontal support and this horizontal support 50 to 60k. So that's it on Bitcoin. We'll be waiting for this one to happen, and of course, let's see if this will happen for our conditions to be met, and then we'll buy on to break upward. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next one. As we can see, Bitcoin made this massive corrective movement, but don't panic. This movement is very normal. As you can see, corrective here, and here as well. And we are still overall bullish. Here's why. When we are in a bullish trend, the price would be making higher lows and higher highs, right? And the momentum would be shifted from bullish to bearish only, as per the market structure 101, only when the last low is broken down. So here's our last low, and it happens to be also the 50k, 48 and 50k zone. So until Bitcoin breaks below this area, we would be overall bullish, and we are still looking for buy setups. And when we are in a bullish trend, for those who know me know that, we always wait for the corrective movement to end to look for buy setups to catch the next impulse movement. For example, we've had an impulse here. On the corrective, we were looking for buy setups, but we can't really know where the corrective would end and the impulse would start. That's why we try to make sense of the chart. We try to look for rejection areas for extra confirmation on lower time frames. For example, here on the corrective movement, we have the 30k round number, and we were looking for buy setups on lower time frames here with extra confirmation, and the exact same thing around here as well. Let me show you. Around here and the 50k, we're looking for buy setups to add more longs, right? So we are still overall bullish, and we can even draw this line that you saw earlier, and let's make an offset. So we are overall bullish from a long-term perspective, as you can see here, and now we are also overall bullish from a medium-term perspective. And yes, when the impulse is getting flatter, so aggressive steep, aggressive, and now it's getting flatter. We know that we might have a potential reversal, but the reversal would be confirmed only after a break below the previous swing low, which didn't happen yet. So now we are still bullish on Bitcoin, and since, as mentioned previously, we had this corrective movement like here, here, and here. We are now looking for what? For buy setups to catch the next impulse. Buy setups to catch the next impulse, and you already got the idea, right? So now we are looking for buy setups, knowing that the corrective movement may not end here. It can still go down to around the 50K, which is a very strong round number. And obviously, it's now acting as a demand and support many times. We had rejections from it here and here as well. So long story short, let me draw this one again. Long story short, we are still overall bullish. We are still fine. Don't panic. We'll be looking for buy setups here. We don't enter blindly. Always follow your trading plan. I have, as per my trading plan, I zoom into lower time frames, but I don't have anything to mention yet. That's why I didn't zoom now. And look for reversal bullish pattern in this case, as I'm looking for buy setups. For example, a trend line break, a double bottom pattern, universal and shoulders, and so on. So always follow your trading plan and only enter with extra confirmation. But long story short, we're overall bullish unless Bitcoin breaks below the 50 and 48K, which is the previous swing low, right? Then and only then we can say that we might have a shift in momentum, and we might have a potential downtrend. But anyway, let's take it step by step, right? We'll be looking for buy setups now at the next impulse movement around the 70K, which is the intersection of the trend line and of obviously the 70K. And knowing that Bitcoin can still go down to around here to test the 50K one more time to get more liquidity to be able to push price higher. That's it. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next.